All right. I'm just gonna go ahead and start.
2 minutes till.
You want the 2 minutes?
I keep seeing it, but I haven't heard it.
I'm gonna hit this, yeah?
Oh, you're going live? Okay.
Or you want to
Okay,
wait?
no, that's fine.
And then they can't catch us.
One of the most popular questions they make as a Jamaican is, Raul, what is a RAS? I listen to them.
That was
RAS
nice,
not
eh?
the definition, but these are the ways you can use RAS in a sentence.
I'm alone. Pastor, you want to know something that walk through the cemetery and I feel a bit clapping in my ras as a verb. You could be Nick, because I've been coming down here for my ras, you mean your clap as an adjective.
It's
Yo,
from live.
go put on the ras phone and go do your homework. As an adverb, you drink too ras much. When you put the money like this and chicken back and cook for your picnic them. As a conjunction, you know, hurry of it. Ras, I find something that when you really give me in a simile. He mad like a ras. In a metaphor, he is a mad ras. Used in a compliment. Yo, my girl, you're pretty in a ras. Used to take back a compliment. Oh, you know answer me. Like when you out in a ras. Finally, to specify the type of cloth a person is.
Oh,
Yo,
yeah.
you see the MP in worse than a bumper cloth. It's a ras cloth.
Oh yeah, people are.
One.
Good idea.
Yeah, he's
I like
based
that.
here in South Florida.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, he's
I'm gonna try to take over from White Name.
Yeah.
From
No,
Major.
Major.
No, I can't
I
take it.
don't.
Well, I get the rest talk about it.
1 minute.
All right, so turn the phones down. Where's Caribbean? So
So much life you take this week, Keith?
Not much, you know.
Leading up to this episode. You don't take nobody life.
Not yet.
You know what you used to say? What was it?
How
What you
much
used to say?
ants you kill? How much
Oh,
mosquito you kill?
You see it?
Remember that saying? Why? I take life. Remember
Yeah,
that?
man, I
You used to
mean.
say that? You don't say that no more, though.
No, people still say that. I
Yeah.
take that as taking life.
Young people, not old people. Like.
But I don't.
I'm not going.
Oh, lick out, that guy, lick out. I don't know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
No.
But I read. I interpret take life as in giving life, not.
No, take life mean things are going, Bill. You know,
Right,
we
it's a
kid.
good thing.
Yeah, good thing. Yeah. Yo, that curve goat, yeah, take life.
Okay, it's 8 o'clock.
Speaking of
Mr.
curve goat,
Kevin.
yeah.
For the food.
So I 8 o'clock, okay?
Yes.
All right. It's that time again when we,
No twanging tonight.
yes.
Tonya.
All right, now go down and some funny roots. Time to start the show, brother.
Easy motor, eat it.
All right.
Go on.
All right, it's that time again for us to get busy. Welcome to another episode of the Caribbean Edge. Today's topic will be, is taking a life ever justified? This should be really good tonight because everybody here on the panel is life takers. What?
You want to take life?
Yeah, come have a take life. You understand? So anyway, let's get started with one of the first questions here.
No, introduce yourself.
No,
on
sir.
the panel.
That's right.
Them for no.
Right, them for no. You don't know it? Alright, my name is Keith Heron.
Shauna Whittingham.
Sean Spalding.
And Dawn Wilson, welcome.
Welcome to another
Welcome to-
episode of the Caribbean Edge.
Thank you for viewing. And now we will officially get started. Thank all the viewers who are already popping on. It's like you guys have a time, like you have an alarm clock and you get started with us. That's beautiful. Love it. One of the first questions here is, are you against or for taking a life? And just set up a little circumstance for what you think this may happen. So I'm gonna go ahead and anybody who wants to raise a hand, well, man, full hand. Dawn, go ahead. Go ahead, start.
When would I justify taking a life?
Yeah, personal
Okay.
experience.
Well, are you?
Why are they giving me a hard time
Well, are
already?
you against it or for it?
I think there are circumstances that I would justify taking someone's life. And let me clarify, I have not taken a life yet.
That anybody know of? Unless, yeah.
But not taken.
Okay.
But I think one of the reasons I would take life is if it's self-defense. I've thought about it as far as, if someone hurt my children, someone raped either my son or my daughter, I don't know. I would definitely have the thought to take their life in revenge. And for me, I think it would be absolutely worth it to spend the rest of my life in jail if I got caught. So that would be a justified reason, personally, for me to take a life.
Yeah, regardless of the time, whether this something just happened to your child or to you, or a year passed and you decide to seek revenge. But you're acknowledging that that would be revenge.
Yeah, it would be revenge.
Vengeance.
Yeah.
So watch your back, everybody out there. Anybody who has messed with Dawn.
No.
Sean?
Tikia.
Or you, Shauna, you want to go next?
Yeah,
Ladies first.
I actually don't support taking a life. Now, does it mean that I would or wouldn't do it? I don't know. I don't know. I know that similar to Dawn, I would definitely have the thoughts and urge to, out of self-defense or protection, mainly for my children or for myself, would definitely have the thoughts, have the urge. However, in the grand scheme of things, in a perfect world where we don't have chemical imbalance and psychopaths and people who are doing unjustful or heinous things, I actually would prefer to live in a world where we didn't take another life. It's, I know it's not, nobody walks around beating up their chest excited about taking a life.
Speak for yourself, and I know the people I know.
Oops. Okay. All right. Well, outside of the heinous behavior or acts, I would prefer to live in a world where we didn't take life, but we honored it.
Okay.
Shauna's.
Well, I don't know of an instance where I could, with enough time to contemplate the issue, where I would say taking a life is justified. No, I know, this is why I was asking you about time, time.
Yeah.
Is it just then or whatnot? But I do understand in the sense of self-defense, because you're saving your own life, so you're gonna take a life, right? If it ends up being that. But as far as making a judgment, so we're talking about the legal side of it, and making a judgment, say this person needs to take this person's life. No, I don't think that is ever justified. I say that because the way I look on life, I try to live my life in the sense where because we're always evolving, we're supposed to be progressing. And one of the main tenets of the Enlightenment was that neither the king nor the church has any divine right. No one has any divine right to take life. So to bestow upon anyone, including the state, the power to be able to take life goes against that kind of thinking, and I have to be true to that, So regardless of whether I was wrong, my child was wrong, or what have you, then I even in those circumstances, I don't think it is admissible to take someone's life.
All right. My view on that is a little bit of sprinkling of everybody's views on it. And if someone breaks in right now, as we're doing a live feed for the Caribbean Edge and threaten our lives, and we have to go in defense of everybody here. I think at that point, I don't know, I'm not ready to be a martyr for anything and sort of stand up in harm's way unless it is something that I really believe in. So, point being, I think my existence here might be well worth it it's a choice at that point. So am I really saying I'm just going to take that life, or am I saying that I have a choice to make, which I have thought about beforehand, because it will be a split second and you'll have to decide, well, the choice is okay.
Their lies or that
right.
or
and I've sometimes thought about the discussion that I normally hear, which is a very huge discussion. And they say, well, you didn't have to kill him, you could shoot him in the leg, you could shoot him this. You could shoot him in the shoulder.
That's why I practice target, go to target practice.
Right.
Yeah,
So
we've seen your target practice.
right, because that is what we like to think. Let's just do that, and maybe that's the best thing. But I'm not a marksman, and I I'll do the best I can. I don't want to kill anything on this planet. I mean, when I used to have my summer camps, the kids will even tell you, when they see a lizard, they say anything, even a roach, they're ready to kill it. And I said, no, let me just scoop it up outside. It will be dinner for a bird or something. I just don't want to kill anything. That's just me. I'd rather grab it, put it in paper, throw it somewhere, a spider or something, and throw it out. So me, really, I don't like to kill. But that being said, in defense, the quick decision is going to be, let me protect what I love before that person takes it away.
But I think we all sitting at this table can agree that we would, if we were in harm's way, we'll just use the four of us right here, right now, we would probably do all that we can to deter or protect ourselves without necessarily ending the life of the intruder. I mean, unfortunately, especially if you're using a weapon such as a gun, if you're not a marksman, you're gonna hit where you're gonna hit, and it might cause a life. But if given with the time and skill, I would attempt not to murder that person.
Yeah, I think the irony
Right.
shouldn't be lost there, because I don't think the two things are mutually exclusive. I don't think being a firearms owner, which I am, and being against taking a life, I don't think they're mutually exclusive. I think it can be both, because I am. You know, and like I said earlier, that if I am in danger or my family is in danger, then I won't hesitate to use that kind of force, whether that ends up in taking a life or whatnot. But you know, it's at that point it becomes an equation. Am I for taking my own life or my family member's life, or am I for taking their life who is imposing violence on my family?
Because you'll ask, when does it become self-defense? Because there's a whole other side of the argument.
Well, you know what? It's great that he mentioned that, because now we're going to go on. I'm not an attorney. Is anybody here on this panel an attorney?
No, but I play one on TV.
All right. So we're not attorneys. So guys, let me just put this out there. This is just a discussion that we're going on, what we've read, what we've researched, and none of us here have Esquire behind our name. So let's have that chat. I do think, you know, we have the right to have that chat. And we're going to go now on what we consider legal and what is not. You know, there are certain things put in front of us. You lose a case, we know it was tested for let's say first degree murder, the charges are this, just things that are put in front of us, so we know, oh, that guy is up for the death penalty in certain states. And at that point, we know losing that case means that that person is going to go for the death penalty. So when it comes to the legal part of it, do you think what we have in front of us is fair? Do you think it's impartial? What do you think about taking a life and the written word as we know it, taking any life? Because it even comes down to, and I know a lot of people aren't thinking of this at the moment, but it even comes down to a signed document that you become the POA, or the power of attorney for a person who to resuscitate, or a person who is now debilitated and is probably incoherent and can't make a decision, a doctor comes to you. So you may have that. So these are all the legal and the paperwork and things which may give you the right as a family member or the closest of kin or whatsoever to make the decision, even in a legal aspect when it comes to criminal law or in the medical aspect. So views anybody?
Well, I believe your question, if I'm understanding it right, is the law operating efficiently? Is the law
correct?
Is the law operating in a fair manner? And I don't believe it is, because the whole question of the death penalty, I think, is more of a race penalty. And I know there are people out there say, oh, you're going to bring race into it again. But this discussion cannot be had without bringing race into it, because...
Can I interject? And,
yeah,
then,
sure.
and then, because I just want to give you guys a little bit of leeway to in your explanation or in your opinion on what we're discussing here. Let's throw everything in the pot. Let's think about how things were back in the Roman day, back in biblical days, in whatsoever you can conjure at this time. Even the viewers, the things that you've heard about back in the past and now, and why it changed and why you think it changed and so on.
Yeah. Well, okay. So I'll get to that. Then, but let me talk about the racial aspects of it. So the inflicting the death penalty on a defendant in this country has historically been higher for blacks and brown skinned people versus white people. And that has been, it's recorded, there's no disputing that, it's in your face. I think that the numbers are you're 3 times more likely to get the death penalty if you are black, 4 times more if you're Latino. And then you're also talking about the person who the defendant, right? But let's also look at who the crime was committed against. So if you took the life of a white person, you are far more likely to get the death penalty as a black person than taking the life of another black person
Right.
or another brown skinned person.
Right.
You get me? So it's skewed. So I guess my answer to the question is no, I don't think the laws are fair. And I think it runs right along the sides of how the whole mass incarceration issue is. So it's skewed. It doesn't address the whole population the same. As far as the the beginnings of the death penalty, I think it's. Okay, so let me start here. The beginning of this country, because I'm going to stick to United States. Right. So the United States, for instance, first of all, we're number 5 as far as countries that kill people due to capital punishment, and we're not keeping very good company. We're talking about countries like China, Iraq, countries that we don't want to keep company with. But the beginnings of the United States we had the death penalty in place with the original colonies, 13 colonies. We had it in place from then, and but there still was opposition. There was opposition from then, but going forward, the death penalty was used to really put people, disenfranchised people that were not necessarily part of the community. For instance, right after the Civil War, it's like the 50 years after that, that's where you had about 4,000 lynchings recorded, right? And after that, we were using the death penalty as legalized lynching, right? That's when we're really using it to really make a statement, because the South was terrified against black revolt, after slavery. So these are the beginnings of the death penalty, which is why I think that having that in place in a first world country is a problem, and it really shows our lack of civility.
Yeah. I don't know that I understand your question, and I am not an attorney. However, what little I understand is if you were to take a life, even in self-defense, you are immediately charged with murder. It doesn't mean you're going to necessarily be convicted of it, because no matter what the circumstance, you've murdered a person. And so, there are law enforcement officers, some that will believe your case, let's just say it is truly in self-defense, and there are others that aren't going to. So you better lawyer up quickly, what happened?
And like they say, don't answer any questions until you have that attorney.
Right. You give, from what little I understand, the right way to handle it is to tell them you are willing and going to cooperate with their investigation. However, don't open your mouth, especially after something as traumatic as that. You're not going to remember. I don't know if you're sitting at the table, forget killing anybody, because we don't run around killing people, whether deliberately or not. But if you've ever gone through anything traumatic, it's almost like time stops, and you don't necessarily have a true account of what's happened.
Yeah.
So it's very sticky.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Was that crimes of passion? And that's where right in the thick of it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay,
Adrenaline.
Yeah. I think I look at the death penalty as far as I always thought when I was younger, could I ever pull the switch on someone? Like, to be that person that made that decision. And I don't think I could under those circumstances. But I read a story, a true story about this gentleman and his wife and family. And someone actually broke into their home, killed his wife in front of him, raped his 2 daughters, threw kerosene on the entire family and set the house on fire.
Yeah, I heard
The
about that.
husband survived.
Yeah.
And I can't tell you that if that was me, like you said, at what point, there's a time difference. So in the moment, you would defend yourself if you can and kill this person. But even after that, there is no way I wouldn't want to revenge this person. I'm not saying I could go through with it, but those are my thoughts that you just killed my entire family, everybody I care about.
Even no matter how much time you had to think about it after.
I would try not to let a lot of time pass.
But let's just
I mean,
say.
let's say
Okay.
I just think that's why you took everything that mattered to me. So I'm trying with that situation to be realistic. What this person went through, watching his family totally taken from him, that I wouldn't find every way to go after this person. I can see why people do it.
Darren brings up a good point. Darren Spalding. He says speaking with
JDF.
yeah. Whenever, and we actually have had this discussion before, that when you kill somebody, that whether it's justified or not, that stays with you. What's
Yeah,
his language here?
stay
What
with
did he?
you.
Yeah, something
When
came
you
on
get
my
dopey, it stays with you the rest of your life.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah, that's
Right.
true.
If you guys would
I
allow
think
me,
it
I
ruins
wanted to ask a question based on what Dawn just, the scenario you just brought
Yeah.
up. Well, not scenario, because it actually took place.
Yeah.
Suppose you were the husband, the dad, right? And your wife and your 2 daughters were killed. They're raped and then burnt alive, right? And you're saying that would be justification for you to take their life, whether it was 1 or 2, I believe it was two guys that committed the crime.
Right.
Yeah. So would you think that would be justified for you to take their life?
I would want to, until you're put in the actual situation, but I can see why people do it.
What my thing to that is, anytime somebody brings up a scenario like that, like suppose you have, just to make things less complicated, suppose you have one child, that child was raped and then chopped into pieces, right? So you would say, oh, at that point, no, I'm going to take his life. Okay, so why would you not think it's justified at that point then to rape that person and chop them up into pieces? What's to stop you from doing that?
Eye for an eye.
Yeah,
Right,
why not do that?
I don't want to rape you.
Why
No,
not do that?
but what if those killers, that exact thing happened to
them.
their family, and they think that this man was responsible for it? Let's say they're mistaken, because then it will never stop.
No. That's not even what I'm going. I'm saying, why if somebody shot your child, let's say that,
You
just
should just
for
shoot
ease
them
of,
back.
but why not do that? Why not set that person, set your children on
Because
fire?
I think
Why not set them on
reach
fire?
I think everyone has a breaking point. And there are certain things that, like, let's say someone rapes my kid. I don't want to rape you back. I want to kill you at that point. Is that my breaking point, where it doesn't matter that I'm going to go to jail at that point? You have taken the life of my child. I don't know if I could ever go through with it, but I can
The
see
desire.
why people would
Right,
want
the
to
desire.
do it.
The reason I'm
It would
asking,
take counseling. It would take my friends holding me back from that immediate.
yeah.
Reaction.
I could never get over the fact, just like if I killed you, that I would have to live with that. But so do I have to live with the fact that you are still alive and there's no man-made justice system that can revenge you
Can I ask
for
you something
me.
on that? Is it the matter here just this person does not need to exist anymore, or do you want something as vicious?
Inflict the same pain.
Right. So you mentioned before retaliation, or what term did he use? He say you would
Avenge?
Revenge.
Revenge the
revenge,
person.
right? So
Yeah.
you'd want revenge on them. So you'd want something heinous to them.
I don't
happen,
think
or-
they
or
need
just
to
to the-
You just
exist.
want them to be extinguished.
Discarded.
Yeah.
You just want
Like,
to kill
I
them.
wouldn't think jail would be justified. I don't think you being captured and put in jail, unless I knew you were going to be tortured for the rest of your life, that's justified.
But do
Why
you-
is that
but do
asked
you-
that?
I mean,
When something as crazy
and I'm not an
as-
evil person. I just,
Right.
like,
when something as crazy as that happens, and we get it, we get the desire to want to have that revenge, But does that anger or that hurt or that pain from the destruction of your family, whether that person still lives or not,
It'd still be
It's
there.
still
I would,
it'll
I,
never
still
go-
on
it'll
it.
never
I
go
would
away.
still feel better knowing that you are not
In a-
happily.
You know what's funny? Since we're on law and things like these happening, and we know this when there is a death penalty, whichever state has it, it has to be humane. They use that terminology. You can't have that person in the electric chair shaking up
It's a
and
cop-out.
or when the injection
Death
is
is
done.
death.
They want it to be humane, because the whole thing is, we're not here to inflict anything on this person. We're better than that person who did that heinous thing. So what we want to do is just discard this person, get them out of the population. And it comes back to me now, why, this question, I want you to think about this, why is it the law different from state to state? Are people in different states with a different mentality or a different temperament? Why it has to be different? I know it's legislation, and I know you have to go and vote on all these things, but let's give that a thought. Why is it different in the United States of America, different from state?
But I think you just answered that. It's what people vote for.
It's money.
Right. It's a mindset. It's yeah.
Well, you have numbers to back up that kind of thinking being prevalent in the South.
Right.
Because we all know Texas. Texas, for example, is very pro capital punishment.
Right.
All right, so there are numbers to support that, and that's a whole other argument as to
Right.
why it's strong here. I think part of that is because coming from the east, our country was founded on the east, right? And then going west, there was a lack of law that was going to the west. So when people started going into the west and going south, there was more like there was no law infrastructure, no judicial infrastructure. It was more like, okay, it's a Wild West.
Yes.
So I'm going to take law into my own hands,
Right.
and that has permeated the culture of the South and the Midwest, and I don't think we've escaped that yet.
Right.
That I'm sure that somebody might have an argument against that, but to me, my thinking is that's why that thinking is, or that kind of looking at how justice should be meted out is still resonant in the South.
It's great that we're having this discussion on this, and because one area was transient and it's continuously moving west, the development of the United States, and everything was outlaws, and we even have right now, if you go on, I guess it's some channels, it's all about Scarf, Al Capone, and Two Gun Kid, and all these guys from back in the in the days, and they're revered because of what they were doing over. So let's get the laws aside and let's take it to some of these areas. Let's think about the moral discussion of whether you can take a life. Let's think about the primal discussion, as we see it with animals out there, as we see it with human beings. No law, you're going out into the Wild West. Let's think about primal. Let's think about just how things are developed without law, and you're there is no law, we're in no annexed area, and let's see what your law is. Also, if there's anybody out there who come from the Gaza area, I want to hear the hood law also. That you have the big the Gaza, and why, because I remember this, and I'm going to tell you guys this now. When I used to go to JC and I was coming home, and they used to have curfew, and me stop off at my friend's house and we play some ball and thing, and when I look at, oh God, I know here going block out, then we have rat patrol on the road, XYZ.
Rat patrol, eradication.
You remember that eradication squad and all them things, right? And they're going, schoolers, you're supposed to be home. Minibus going to stop run and all them things, and I have to run home on Malines Road all the way home, right? I remember back then, you have Gaza lot, and them know you used to play ball, and you could get through certain areas, and them know when Rat Patrol going to be there, when they're going to have their patrol coming through. Of course, I get a beating from daddy when I get home. Can I say, boy, I never tell you. Anyway, that's another story. Sorry. So anyway, we're going to just have a discussion now on no laws, no policing. You're a landowner. out there in the West, you have your pump rifle and your family to take care of, laws and boundaries and so forth that we can talk about. Even the Gaza people can come in, or just what you think is primal for taking a life. At what point, where do you draw the line in the sand and say, at this point, if somebody steals my livestock, if they come and rob my house, if they take some of my property, if they hurt my family, how far do they get in before you decide that you're going to take a life?
I think there's some correlation between the size of community and the meeting out of retribution or meeting out of any kind of punitive measures. So the smaller you get, the more you go into the wilderness. You're out in the wilderness, you have your family, your ranch or what have you. I'm just getting this picture in my head.
Right.
So if you are being your family is now the victim of raiders that are coming in, or somebody trying to steal your livestock or what have you, I guess at that point there's no other way to put it, but there's a lowering of the bar as far as what you find civil and what's not civil, you know, because at that point then you do have to take, you know, matters into your own hands. You have to.
Garfield has a very important question. What if you're at a Burger King and a gunman already killed 2 people in front of you and is about to kill a cashier and you are armed?
Ooh. Good one, Garfield.
Is your life in danger?
Yeah. That's what
Okay.
He just killed
So
2
then, if
people.
your life is in danger, then at that point, I think all the gloves are off. Then you have to fend for yourself.
I'm wondering if he's saying, is it, oh, my life is in danger
Hey, no.
immediately, or the cashier?
No,
is-
she says he says
about
she's
to
a
kill
killer
the cashier.
Ooh.
So we'll wait for you to rally back on that, Garfield, and answer that question. I have a question for the panel and the audience as far as whether you feel it is ever justified to take a life. And so, you know, you have people who are far right in terms of, you know, they want to riot and carry on and actually murder people for having abortions. Yet they are all about the death penalty. For the panel, do you think taking the life, for whatever reason, justified, consider a justified reason, let's not get into, well, if it was this or that. Let's say you felt the decision was justified to have an abortion, you know, whether that be your child or your spouse or what have you. What are your opinions? Is that considered
Taking
a
a life?
life? Yeah.
You mean like me personally having an abortion, or going after someone that has had abortion?
It doesn't matter whether it's you personally or not. The question really is, this is an unborn person, unborn.
So for me personally, I think everyone's choice matters. For me personally, no. I wouldn't want to. I still consider it a life for me.
Okay.
Why you prefaced your question with saying the far right? Why?
Right, because you know you just talk to people, or there are people out there who they are staunch. They are so against abortions, and in my mind personally, because I'm not against abortions.
Right.
Now I think people need to be aware of their actions and the consequences. So, for example, if you're not responsible enough to take care of a baby, then you shouldn't be out there having sex, because a consequence of having sex is getting pregnant, right?
So poor people
But-
shouldn't have sex.
No. No.
Really?
I'm just kidding. Good question. Use protection. No. So this is mainly because when I think of abortion, like my main thinking is like a young child, you know, like a teenager not ready to become a parent. So maybe you're not ready to have sex.
But a lot of older
the-
people have abortions
Yeah.
too, because at that point they're like, oh my God.
Agreed. I'm not even trying to get into the weeds, because you're right. Some
Yeah.
older people are even more justified, because now you're too old. Maybe you are concerned about the health of the baby. But whatever the reason, if you think it's justified, fine. I did preface the question because I don't understand how you're going to bun down the place, fire a bun for people who have abortion, yet they're all for the death penalty, when that's a life that is living. Like It
No,
doesn't, it doesn't
I agree.
connect for me.
I agree. I don't think you can have both opinions. I'm sure somebody could come on here and argue the point, but I don't think you can have the same share those opinions. You're for the death penalty, but you're against abortion. I don't see how those two can coexist. But the only reason I ask about the far right is because the most liberal state in the union is California, and they host the most people on death row. So go figure.
You know,
But I think if I mention that, I only think it's justified for me to mention the fact that the amount of executions that have been executed versus the amount of people on death row. I mean, it's stark. It's very underwhelming, the amount of executions that have taken place. So I think they're using it,
right.
putting people on death row as a deterrent.
Right.
And-
To scare them.
Yes, and you know, one of the funny things about that, as we have to teeter back, as we start thinking about about killing, the first thing popping in our mind is, oh man, I'm gonna get killed because I just defended myself, and we don't know whether it's right or wrong. Just as Garfield has set this scenario for us, and we're looking it over. There are other things to think about where we really don't think, well, making that decision comes in, where we talk about suicide, we talk about abortion, we talk about mercy killing. What about Kevorkian when he was around and he was saying, hey, you know, they don't want to do it, you bring your grandma to me, or the grandma says, I need to take my life, which is an assisted suicide, they call that.
Yeah.
You know, what about all these things? Mercy killing, yes.
Yeah.
So these are other things to think about. But there's also killing, which, let's say PETA is against, where they're killing the killer whales, or they're going over and killing elephants, and they're killing everything else. So because we're on the topic of is taking a life worth it, we do have an abundance. There's so much waste in food, in poultry, and in livestock that's out there, that we're killing more and wasting a lot more. And is it really necessary to do all this killing? So across the board now, we're going to look at suicide, abortion, mercy killings, and just give your opinion, and even for animal testing. So they would bring in, you know, whatsoever it is, and plus killing for body parts, whatsoever it is, just for money. So all these things, do you think anything along there we could probably rein back and have some legislation over all this stuff?
So could we pull back on any legalized killing?
Killing,
Yeah.
exactly, because most of these that you have,
But humans are animals.
all right, let's just hit on the human part alone.
Okay.
So we're gonna hit on the mercy killing, abortion. Well, we sort of went over about.
Well,
suicide.
no, I get what you're saying. I don't look at mercy killing as sanctioning killing, because mercy killing means that the person in question who would like to end their life has stated, I would like to end my life.
Okay.
So to me that's more of a suicide, and being an agnostic, I have no moral inclinations that prevent me
Alright.
from saying that no, I don't think they should. No, it's your life, you can end it whenever you damn well please.
Right.
So yeah, I have no problem with that.
But in the situation where this person was in an accident or
Like a
something
vegetable
happened-
now,
right, so they
and
have-
somebody
yeah,
else has
you
to
have
make
pull-
the decision
Right.
to pull the
What do you-
plug.
what do you
Oh,
think?
without their consent?
Well, they didn't. Let's say they didn't.
They never charged
appropriations, right? So
Oh, okay.
That one's tough.
Yeah.
Usually, I mean, what do they do? Most people go to the next of kin, and it's really their decision. Most families come together and say, you know, would this loved one want to live in the States or not? You know what I mean?
let me tell you, even just thinking about this is tough for me. Even just the thought that we're posing this question is tough for me, and I'm sure there are some people in our audience that it probably was close to them or something like that, where you had to, the family comes together and we don't want to, and we want to, and you know, so. Anyway.
That's why I think it's important to have the discussions, and we don't in advance.
Oh, who has ever had a discussion? You know,
I have.
if I'm in an accident,
I have.
kill me.
No, I've had the
Okay,
discussions.
yeah.
I tell my
you
loved
do.
ones that, you know, I want to be able to walk and talk and wipe my own batty till the day I die.
But generally, what happens is that after you make that statement, they're like, okay, so now there's scales. All right, so maybe you can't get up and walk.
No. That just
No,
take
but
let's
you know what I mean? But maybe you're thinking,
we
maybe your
don't-
brain works.
We don't
Yeah,
have
it's
an,
not-
but let's just take it to the
Yeah.
extreme. Should I ever be in a vegetated state,
Mhm.
you know, and I'm just laying up in the bed and can't move. You know, here's where the moral comes in. It's like, what if she wake up tomorrow? What if she can walk again?
That's
Because there are those cases.
Yeah.
But no, people have those
But
discussions.
if you're in a coma.
Yeah.
But it's not only important to have the discussion, it's also important to put it in writing.
Right.
Because you can have the discussion with someone and that person passes away before you do. And then you've never had the discussion. Or another family member is against it even though you're insisting
Right.
that you had this discussion.
That's why
so
the
the
writing
best
is
way
so
is putting
important.
it in writing.
If it's not in writing though.
If it's not in writing, it is a tough decision for any loved one.
I'll
to
give
make.
you a personal experience. My father met in a terrible car accident and he was in a coma for 22 days. 22 days. So he woke up. You all know that he got remarried at the age of 80, so he is living life. Now, granted, my father has never been the same. He had to learn to walk again, talk again. He had a broken jaw. And when he woke up, he actually was quite depressed. He said to my mother and us as families, why I never met me dead? Why?
Wow.
Because what happens now is your brain is still intact, at least his was, but his physical ability wasn't
Diminished.
it was.
Yeah.
No, he ended up living, and it's still living at quality of life, but it's a serious dilemma because if one person is of the train of thought that this person is never going to wake up, or if they do wake up, they're not going to have quality of life, you just really never know. So I agree with you, Dawn. Very important to put it in writing because families divide because of that.
And that's something important too, because you mentioned that he was in a coma for 22 days, right?
Yeah.
Did they expect him to come out of that coma, or you guys just didn't know? Because that's different as
Day by
well
day.
too.
Right,
with the day-
we didn't waver, and we got our strength from my mother because she never left his side. If she left his side, one of us was there. It was so important to her that we just never left his side. And she also believes in holistic approach. So when he was in ICU, and this is in Jamaica, in Kingston, all kind of other things happened where light gone and machine power. There are people who died while he was there. He was just, but we had no doubt. Call it, we were naive. I don't know, but we just,
Or faith?
we just
Yeah.
believe there's certain pressure points that you can press, and like whenever we were in there, she's like, always press right here when you talk to him even though he's not responding.
Yeah.
So we had, his immediate family had no doubt, and we never gave up, but I could see where some people would, right?
Right. But because we know doctors have been wrong and doctors have been right, so when it's such a personal decision.
Yeah, the frailty of being a human being, boy. I mean, even the best attorneys out there got it wrong sometime and sentenced some people to death, and they're on death row, and next thing you know, oh, we found something.
Yeah.
And
We're always hearing about these new issues, right? Or people being freed after new evidence. But what is that evidence generally is?
It's evident DNA or
So stop right here, right? So this is a misconception. I'm glad you brought that up. It's a misconception. DNA is not the primary reason why these people have been freed. You know what the primary reason is? Prosecutorial misconduct.
Right.
It's not DNA.
Yeah.
So this is can you imagine how many innocent people were put to death? That DNA wouldn't have freed them. It was just prosecutorial misconduct.
But
do you agree? Do you guys agree that present day, not then, I agree with you 100%, but do you agree that present day forensic, the sophistication of it would be hard outside of misconduct to prosecute the wrong person?
No, I think it would still be easy because again, just reiterate what you say, we're not attorneys here, but the law is of such that if you know how to maneuver your way between the different legal wranglings, you're able to either seek prosecution or evade prosecution.
Right.
So it's
You're
not
as
a
good as your
perfect thing.
representation.
Exactly. You know, like they say, the opposite of poor is not rich. The opposite of poor is justice.
Yeah.
You understand? So it's not about the where we have the mechanism now where people can get off. No, but people can still, if we have the death penalty in place, people will always be wrongfully killed.
Yeah.
And speaking to Garfield's question about, he was talking about, I forget
The
the word,
Burger King.
like a self-defense notion.
Yeah, he actually added more to it. So I'll throw
Yeah,
it on
okay.
before you answer. He said his life wouldn't be in danger, but there is a cashier looking at him,
Right.
and he has the right through her eyes, and he has the power to protect her.
Okay, so my thing is this. If it were me, I can only speak for myself, can't speak for anybody. For me, then yes, I would use my fire to put down the person, and more like in a law enforcement manner where I'm not shooting to injure, I'm shooting to kill. So yes, I am willing to take a life at that point because I'm looking out for my life and everybody else's, right?
You see, but you know what?
What's your
There's a and this is a discussion that I think we should all have also. One thing that you can do where it seems as the proper route, as I have had this discussion, I've had this discussion with people I have brother-in-law and other people in the family that are in law enforcement, and we have had that discussion before. And one of the things that you do is, in situations like those, Garfield, is you don't shoot the person or whatsoever, but you do let the person know that you're there, and you can say, hey, leave that girl alone. Hey, stop with it. But this is the thing. It does point everything a little bit better in your case, because now the person takes you on, and now you're going to defend yourself.
So you mean are you speaking as a private citizen or as a member of law enforcement?
Oh, law enforcement, they just deal with the case because they're there to take care of everybody there, so they can do that. But as a private citizen, I don't think I would ever just think I'm going to kill somebody, even though they're going over to kill somebody else. But I would definitely let them know, stop, whatsoever, or else blah, 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 and get them draw the attention more to me and make the defense. No, I have to defend. And then when you go to a court case, then you can say, well, I saw this was going on. I thought this was such and such. I did this and this to tell him not to do that, but then he decided he was going to kill me.
Well, let me ask you this then. At the end of the day, now what we're doing, we're trying to prevent the loss of life, right? Mm-hmm. So if that is our goal at the end of the day, is prevent the loss of life. What about this statistic? And this is a real thing. There's just under 8%, like 7.8, 7.7% increase in the homicide rate among states that have stand your ground laws. Florida being primary, right? So you see a definite increase in the homicide rate with states that have stand your ground laws. Mm-hmm. Right. So that says that if we are using deadly force, or allowed a more liberal use of deadly force, then more people are going to die. And including in that is an increase in law enforcement killing, right? So there's a definite causation between states that have stand your ground laws and the increase in civilian life and taken, and increase in law enforcement life that's taken. So that's for all that red meat. I'm gonna throw some red meat out at you.
Then it becomes a wild, wild west. But we
want to incorporate the audience as well. So a lot of great points tonight, and we definitely want to thank everyone that tuned in tonight to help share and comment with us. Revlon, throw in a little humor in there. Most certainly wanted to kill my ex several times. We're glad you did not.
Jesus
take that. And Revlon agrees with us as far as the kids in self-defense. And Jeannie, thanks for joining us as well. And Rosie, thanks for always tuning in. Rosie had a couple comments on here. To save a life, don't you think an attempt to disable the person, even if it means firing, attempted act could be justified? So I think we covered that. And Janice, thanks for tuning in. She makes a good point about pregnancy. It says, unfortunately, it goes beyond that. There is pregnancy created by rape, and the female just can't handle it. So
right. That was in sync with when we were talking about abortion. But also, just above that, Andre Walter, he says, in self-defense of my life or another, I feel it's justified. Do you think most people probably think along those lines? As well as is, you know, in Jamaica when you say Simeon come live with me are two different
different
things.
things.
You can talk all day about what you wanna do.
Right.
But until you are faced with that situation, you really have no clue.
Which is what I said.
Yeah.
I think I would want to, with every ounce of blood that flows
Yeah.
through me, but to be put in the situation is totally different.
But you know what, TCE crew, I love this. Because we have the talk again. We're engaging in these discussions with all these topics. Because I'll tell you right now, and one that we rolled over is having the discussion with your family. My family, the majority of my family is Jehovah's Witness. So I already know if anything happened and they're incapacitated or they just don't have the chance to think for themselves. I know, and most of them wear a band, first of all, but for some ungodly or godly reason the band fly off.
Yeah.
I said my mom is Jehovah's Witness and her wishes are not to have this done. And if you look at Dragon, she's not a donor, this one and that one, my sister is this, my brother is this. So I can always speak for them if I have the choice. It may not be what I would want to do, but I think, you know, if that's their wishes, just like you're saying with when it comes to a person committing suicide, it's not my job, especially when Kevorkian was around and he said, you go to Mom, but I love you, don't do it. If they decide, you can only do your part by saying, I love you, I really don't want you to go, what can I change, what can we do?
And that's not killing.
That's it.
You're acknowledging their desire, and that's what they want. No, I don't call that killing.
Right.
To me,
Sean Spalding shared something.
Sean Spalding.
Darren Spalding.
Did you make a note?
Sorry.
Sean, what you saying?
Sean, why are you writing on here? Anyway, Darren.
The
sorry.
Matrix. Welcome to it.
I know, right? And this sentiment I agree with wholeheartedly. He says, defending yourself and your loved ones, it would be justified in my books. However, be prepared for the fallout. In eyes of the law, it can get tricky, and the mental problems that you'll possibly have knowing that you took a life. I think you do live with that guilt,
Yeah.
whether it was justified or not.
But I think I would also live with the fact that you took my family. I would rather live with the guilt of taking your life. And I'm not
Speaking from a place, admittedly speaking from a place of ignorance, where you've never taken a life,
I've
so you don't know how
never
that
taken a life. So like I said, that's how I feel now. But
Yeah.
being faced with
Sure.
that is a different story.
Just stutter, I just said that to them.
Yeah. We say I should
And
move
I
over
will
like
be-
After the show, we'll have a talk with her.
For anyone
What
that
will
doesn't know me, I'm a really peaceful person, but there's a breaking point to everything.
We'll have some more wine and some libations later. We'll give you guys the
I'm
Big dog will be fine with it.
I'm the most peaceful person on this planet.
Natalie Wong-San, thanks for chiming in. She says that, so abortion is definitely a woman's right to choose. As for death penalty, depends on the severity of the crimes, no matter what state. Also, everyone should have the power of attorney as well as a will, so loved ones know what to do as far as our wishes and in such. You know, so if it's nothing else out of this episode, start thinking about what you would want your family to do, and maybe even go further and think about what would the best way be to protect yourself and your family should some crazy person come along. But more importantly, the realistic issue is, I mean, at the end of the day, as morbid as this is, we're all going to die. We're going to, hopefully we all live to a ripe old age. However, we are all going to die. So let's really think about, should something happen, how would you want your family to handle that circumstance, as well as put your finances and your business in order.
Yeah.
But going back to literally taking a life, not whether you decide to end it in hospital, but actually out in whether it's legal or self-defense or what have you. The Pope has actually spoken out against it. I think this year in August, spoken out, and he made a statement that said taking a life can never be justified because it violates the
amendments.
not amendments is the right word, but it violates your
Like a
control
moral
over yourself.
Yeah.
And or the gift that was given to you in their words, you know.
Well, I think we hit on guys, what we have posted out there already, we did a segment on incarceration, and so we also did one on mental health, and we sort of dipped our feet, put our toe in a little bit of those. So if you could go back and look at those that we did before, you see a little bit more on our views on both, on incarceration, on mental health, and on violence on a whole. We did have some discussions on those, so you could get a little bit more information from that. Right. But at this time, I'm sure we could go on all night, but what we continue to tell you guys is have these discussions, especially the one with your family, where what are their wishes. I mean, it's time we stop just sitting down when we with family or friends and having just talk about foolishness, and think about some serious things, and we can throw in a little bit of fun in there and a little bit of humor, and make it light, and at the same time get some information across, and then you can sit aside with your mom or your dad or your cousin or so forth, and you say, well, is this what you really want? Because let's see if we can get it down on feet or whatsoever.
Sorry. Natalie said a Catholic church, I guess in reference to what the Pope had to say. She said a Catholic church should be focusing on all the sexual abuse
Oh,
on
God.
minor
Jesus
cases.
Christ.
I think
I agree.
It's true.
I think
So
that's a
true.
large opinion over
Yeah.
here also.
Yeah, Natalie, we'll have you as a guest when we talk, when we bring up that topic. And see how you really feel about it.
But guys, we love having you, and thank you for tuning in again for another episode of
The Caribbean
Edge. Remember to like, share, subscribe, follow us on YouTube,
Right down there.
Facebook,
Hit the like button.
Instagram, and Twitter. We'll see you next week.
Touch it and share it. My beg on the door, please share it.
Thank you.
Hey,
Good
do that
night.
again? Do that again? we look like a crab them over by St. Thomas. Pull up the place.
Good night, guys.
All right,
Thanks
good night.
again.
What the rest of the wine?
Good job, guys. Very good job.
Yeah, good.